Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. The current crisis in the South African mining sector is opening up significant opportunities for emerging black junior miners in the coal space. Mining Weekly editor Martin Creamer tells us more. Welcome, Martin.
Thanks, Shannon.
Westcoal's non-executive chairperson Robinson Ramaite says that the current mining crisis offers several opportunities for junior miners. What are some of these opportunities? How is Westcoal exploiting them?
Yeah, and it's particularly black emerging juniors because of, if we look in the coal space, you've got to see Eskom in the background. How this all developed is that in the good times, companies that listed in Australia, they're listed in London on the AIM, and they're listed in Toronto, they had an understanding investor base that would invest in companies that were going to start with exploration. That doesn't happen easily in South Africa. You know, our institutionalized JSC, it is a bit risk averse when it comes to exploration. It's not used to that sort of background of money raising. So a lot of the capital was raised outside of the country, which means that these are foreign listed companies with assets in South Africa. Not only is the commodity price down, but people who are outside of the country see South Africa as a trouble spot now, a high-risk area. So they're under pressure from their shareholders, these asset holders, to dispose of their South African assets, particularly, you know, to liquidate them. And this is creating a huge opportunity against the background of what Eskom is doing. You know, Eskom buys about 130 million tons of coal a year. We only produce about 250 million tons, so it's a massive amount of coal that Eskom buys. And it said late last year that it wants half of that as soon as possible. It's going to take a long time, of course, or 40% of it to come from black-owned enterprises, not just black-empowered enterprises, but the asset should have black control. It should be 50% plus one share. So all of a sudden, you had a lot of emerging black juniors coming onto the coal market looking for assets like that. These have now suddenly become available in fairly large quantities, and they are starting to snap them up. In addition to that, you know, you get the majors who have been locked into contracts with Eskom for a long time, long-term contracts, cost-plus contracts. They're also wanting to de-risk. So they are coming along to these new emerging players and saying, you know, what about taking some of our assets as well? But you have to do that in liaison with Eskom, and that could be particularly transformative because those would be bigger tonnages. So all of a sudden there's a lot of deal doing and a lot of talk going on in the background, in the coal space in particularly, and it's around this disillusionment by foreign investors and emerging black juniors seeing, wow, this is an opportunity for that we wouldn't have had. These assets wouldn't have become available, and we can take them up.
What about mergers and acquisitions in the coal mining industry?
This is, there's a lot of deal flow at the moment. People are reporting deal flow. You've got an Eskom which is insatiable. It just wants coal, wants more coal, and saying that we want to promote a particular brand of sourcing that has black control. Against that new paradigm, you have all sorts of deals being done, both at the junior level and the senior level.
Can you tell us more about Eskom's exploration stage support for junior miners?
So we've got a country that is largely exploration. It's averse to that risk largely. If you go and try and raise funds and equity, you don't always get a great hearing from your investors. Now along comes Eskom and says, look, if you get these assets, we will help you with the exploration side. We can help fund you. We can also source funds from other developmental bodies and institutions. And not only that, but perhaps we will also take a bit of equity in your operations. And then on top of that, which is, you know, the cherry on the top, once drilling has been done and they test the material and they decide this coal is coal we can use, they then give these emerging black junior miners a contract, an offtake contract. So they've now got all the funding that has been supporting them, plus possibly a bit of equity, and along comes now an offtake agreement. They take that in their hands and they go off to the bank. And you know, it's like a no-brainer. The banks are going to say, Eskom is a very reliable company. They have this firm offtake agreement with you. We will advance you loans, you know, against that guarantee. And so I think it is something that has got a logical sequence to it that could sort of emancipate, you know, this area of mining and bring the black juniors into it in a new windfall era. Those that lost out in the previous black economic empowerment wave, you know, where there was 300 billion rands worth of deal doing, they're now suddenly finding a lot of new deal play coming up, and they could be the beneficiaries of the next wave of black empowerment, but at an even higher level, where they are actually the controllers of these assets on the basis of having a shareholding of 50% plus one share.
How will this affect, or how could it affect beneficiation in South Africa?
See, there are a whole lot of different things that these coal miners do. Sometimes they supply unbeneficiated coal to Eskom, and in other instances they need to wash that coal, and they are looking to selling what they don't offer to Eskom, what Eskom won't take. They sell into the rest of South Africa's coal-consuming industries, you know, from the breweries, the cement works, brickworks, smelters, they all need coal. And what they're saying, that desperate need in the past to have, you know, a supply going into Eskom and then the good coal you export, they're not so desperate for that, because they say there's export parity pricing. That means that the price that you get on the export market, you're getting on the local market. And if they sell outside of that Eskom arena, they're getting export parity pricing from these other consumers. And they're seeing this as their new business plan and a business case, which is very viable, including, you know, the beneficiation stage where you have a wash plant and you get involved in a bit of trading, etc. So I was a little bit skeptical about how Eskom was going to bridge this gap, because, you know, from 2018, you know, they're looking at a coal cliff and they need to firm up 20% of their contracts, and it seems now it could possibly come from this sector with quite a good flow, and at the same time achieve the other goal of bringing black miners into the industry, not just as passengers in a 26% you know, co-pilot sort of arrangement, but as the actual owner. This is a much harder job that you are having to do compared with, say, the days of when Anglo-American BHP Billiton actually created Isizwe and they gave them certain assets. These fellas have got to now, they've got to go and source these assets. They've got to buy these assets. They've got to fund that. They've then got to fund more exploration, because although a lot of these foreign companies were buying these assets, some of them haven't done too much work on them. They've done a bit, you know, so you've got an idea. And you'll take up, you know, all that drilling information, but then you've got to now turn this to account. You've got to drill it up, firm it up, get your contracts in place, and get your offtake in place. So there's a lot of work for these people to do, but it's going to be done as an owner, which is going to, I think, give a new status to what they're doing.
Well, it sounds like a win-win situation to me.
It sounds like something that is really feasible, you know, against that big appetite of Eskom, and also the talk of being able to get export parity prices in other sectors of South Africa's coal-consuming industry.
Thanks for your advice, Martin.
It's a great pleasure, Shannon.
That's the show for today. Join us again next time for more news and insight into what's happening in the mining world.